for δεικνυμι, for the upsilon me verbs, the important thing to know is that the stem δεικνυ is only used for the present and the imperfect tenses. It's only used here. But for every other tense, it stops being a me verb. That's why I said that upsilon me verbs are kind of fake me verbs. They don't have the reduplication, no reduplication. They do have the same suffix endings though, so they'll have the me, the sin, and the asin. But when it comes to the other tenses, so the other tenses, except for the present and the imperfect, it switches its root. It no longer uses δεικνυ. Instead, it uses deg. It turns into a velar stop stem. And you already know how velar stops work. If you look at a verb like ago, like I lead, or archo, I begin, I rule. There's also the deponent form of this, archomai. If you look at these forms, you know already how a velar stop stem forms. So you treat δεικνυμι as if it's an omega verb for every other tense except for the present. So the present looks like a me verb, but for the future, active, aorist active, perfect middle passive, and aorist passive stems, it looks like a velar stop stem. So you see that when you have deg and you add a sigma to it, the square stop says this is a kasi. And so the kasi is correctly written here. It's a second perfect here using the kappa. It aspirates the kappa. We already went over how the perfect middle passive forms work, and so this is actually something familiar and expected. And then we have the theta aspirating the gamma to a he, and then this form is also expected. So the only thing that's a little bit different is that the perfect active form uses the second perfect forms. It doesn't use, so instead of ka, kas, ke, it's a, as, e, and the verbal root changes to dech with a he rather than deg with a gamma. But other than that, its forms should be something you'd be able to do. So go ahead and fill out this entire chart. It should be much easier because δεικνυμι looks like an omega luo verb for all the other tenses, and the only time it looks like a me verb is here for the present active stem. Lastly, what about the non-indicative forms? The non-indicative forms, and I put this out all out together. We already went carefully through didomi, and we went through the non-indicative forms. Once you know the principal part, you know this column, the stem for the present and aorist in the indicative forms the basis for the stem for the participle, the subjunctive, the infinitive, and the imperative. So in the same way we work through the non-indicative moods for didomi, I want you on your own to work through the non-indicative moods for the epsilon, alpha, and upsilon me verbs. And the only thing that will help you with is, remember that while I listed the active participle nominative singular masculine form, really to get all the participle forms, you just simply have to remember the genitive form. The genitive singular form is the base by which you can get all the other participles. So if you know that tithentos is the genitive singular form for tithemi, you can do any participle from that starting point. And the same thing will be for histemi. So it would be histantos. And from histantos, you can form the basis, this genitive singular, for every other form of the participle. And δεικνυμι, it looks just like luo. Take δεικνυ, and then it's ontos as the genitive singular stem, and from δεικνυ ontos you can get all the forms for the present participle, and so on. One other note is that for this, again, the quirky thing about the sta or the alpha mi verbs is that while it has a second aorist indicative form, the first aorist indicative form is actually used for all the other moods. So I should have put this column down here, but I'll just simply note it here. This is a first aorist form. This is a first aorist form. This is a first aorist form, first aorist form, and a first aorist form. These are all, and the only time you see that second aorist being used is in the indicative mood, but in the indicative mood, not only do you have a second aorist form, but you also have a first aorist form there. And so what I'll let you do is work through the different forms for the participles, the subjunctives, the infinitives, the imperatives on your own in the same way that I did for δεικνυμι in the previous module. And you can check your work in the appendices in mounts at the back of the book. So look at the back of the book, and all the forms are there. And just for your convenience, for the principal parts and all the forms of the indicative, I've listed out the mi verbs in the rest of the slides. And with that, you have finished. This was chapter 36. We have just finished chapter 36. You've completed the entire book of mounts. Congratulations. Study hard, do well on the quiz, get ready for the final, and you're almost done.